Hey there, my awakening friends. I'm JP Sears. I would love for us to discuss forgiveness, particularly how to reach a place of true forgiveness. In my opinion, forgiveness is one of the most powerful sources of healing that our inner nature can provide. And at the same time, I think there is quite a trap that happens with forgiveness where kind of the proverbial road to hell is paved with good intentions, where sometimes when we are embarking on forgiveness, believing we're bringing healing to our lives and other people's lives, we're actually coming to a place of intense judgment, rejection, giving our power away, and sometimes taking other people's power. So that's why I'd like to talk about true forgiveness, so we can actually bring more legitimate healing into our lives. So I'd like to differentiate. I believe there's what's called conditional forgiveness, and that's, in my opinion, what traditional forgiveness really is, because traditional rhymes with conditional, means somehow that's true, compared to what I would call unconditional forgiveness, which I also call true forgiveness. So with traditional conditional forgiveness basically means if you did something I didn't like, let's say I hurt over my experience of something that you did. So we go through a phase where I judge you to be bad. I judge you to be wrong. You did wrong. And I judge that you're unacceptable. I disapprove of you. So I have a lot of intense judgment over you. And hell, that's interesting. Hell, I'm a human being. I'm entitled to have judgment. And then as I I'm going to forgive you. With conditional forgiveness, what that really means is I judged you to be a screwed up person. Now I judge you're okay. I'll approve of you now. So from my perspective, this doesn't really create that much heart connection, because now I am putting myself in a place of superiority and dominance over you, where now I judge that you're worth approving, and I grant you forgiveness. I give you permission to not hold the burden of guilt over yourself because of how I feel. And with that said, just a little interjected footnote, I do believe that this traditional forgiveness, it's a step in a healing direction. I don't think it's a grand leap, yet I do believe, some healing, some connection does happen when I'm willing to talk with you again, and when I judge you to be, you're okay, instead of judging you to be not okay. However, this version of forgiveness, in my opinion, is based on approval, which is absolutely a judgment. I didn't approve you, and now I do approve you. And in my opinion, approval carries kind of like a low vibration of consciousness. It's not a very open heart, the one that grants approval. True forgiveness, from my perspective, it rises above the polarity of disapproval and approval and finds a relative place of unconditionality called acceptance, not approval. So if I'm in a place of true forgiveness of you, I don't need to judge you to be a bad person, and now I don't need to judge you to be a good person. My job is to accept you as you are. Rather than feeling bad about myself, projecting that onto you, blaming you for it, and then making you responsible for how I feel with conditional forgiveness. So true forgiveness carries for me the much more open-hearted, sacred vibration of acceptance. So when we're in a place of acceptance, I don't have to worry about approval or disapproval. Usually, when we're kind of in our sleeping consciousness, we only approve of things, we only accept things that we approve. But here, what I'm inviting us all to is a step in a more heartward direction, if that's a word, where I'm willing to accept even what I don't really approve of, and I'm willing to accept what I do approve of. So in other words, if I felt hurt from one of our interactions, for true forgiveness, I don't need you to change who you are. I don't need you to justify your actions. I don't need you to audition for my approval, because my heart is looking to accept you as you are, rather than my ego looking to approve you or disapprove you. So, acceptance being for me a very powerful element of true forgiveness. Another element of true forgiveness for me means we realize that all real forgiveness is always directed at our own self. So even if we went through a time where I felt you wronged me, you betrayed me, and we'd all say, yeah, you have a reason to hold a grudge here, JP. That person needs your forgiveness. With true forgiveness, what I'm looking for is to actually accept the vulnerability in my heart about how I feel. What feelings inside me did my heart generate through my perception of our interaction? So when I reach a place of genuine, true forgiveness, which for me can take me a little while, I'll come up to you instead of saying, hey, you were screwed up and now I judge you to be kind of acceptable because you felt guilty enough for a while, so your punishment has been served. Instead of saying that, I'll come up to you and I'll say something like, I had some anger projected at you based on what happened. And underneath that anger, I'm learning to accept that I was actually feeling pretty sad underneath. And underneath that sadness, I was feeling pretty afraid. And underneath that fear, I was actually even feeling shame. So really, what this issue is about for me, dearly beloved here, is part of me didn't feel good enough for you. When you yelled at me, screamed at me, I thought I was angry at you. I thought I needed to forgive you. Now what I'm really realizing is I need to forgive the part of me who felt like he wasn't good enough for you in that moment. And I realize I reacted with anger at you because I didn't know how to go inward quick enough to realize, boy, I sure don't like feeling like I'm good enough. So I don't need you to audition for my forgiveness, because I'm learning to forgive myself for how unacceptable I made myself feel in that moment. And I'm also learning to accept myself that I wasn't enough to control you and get you to act the way I wanted you to. So here I am in this example, coming to a place of true inner forgiveness, which to me really means I'm drilling deeper than my superficial reaction. I'm drilling deeper into the vulnerability of my heart. What am I really feeling about me? Conditional forgiveness is, for me, the illusion of, what am I feeling about you? That's a layer of feeling reality. Let's not deny it. But let's not get stuck in it. Let's not stop our journey after we've taken one step. Let's go beyond what I think I'm feeling about you. What about me am I really projecting onto you? Oh, I was feeling about me. I was afraid I wasn't in control. And I was ashamed that I wasn't enough to get you to treat me the way I wanted to be treated. So I simply felt like I wasn't good enough. Let's just say the shoe's on the other foot, because a lot of times it is. Let's say you and I are in a position where we feel like we've wronged someone and we want their forgiveness. So let's not fall into the seduction of taking that person's power away. The same way we don't want someone to take our power away. So if I feel as though I've wronged you and I feel guilty about it, I don't want to come up to you. Well, maybe part of me does. But my heart doesn't want to come up to you and say, hey, will you please forgive me? Please forgive me. I beg for your forgiveness. What I'm actually asking you to do is be responsible for how I feel, and then be responsible for me feeling better. In other words, I don't want your forgiveness here in this conditional sense of forgiveness. What I really want is, I don't want to feel guilty anymore. And I don't want to feel ashamed of myself because I feel I did bad, I feel I was bad with how I treated you. The unvulnerable, closed heart will say, please forgive me. The open, vulnerable heart says, you know what? I feel really guilty for how I treated you. And honestly, I feel pretty ashamed about how I treated you. And instead of putting all that responsibility on you, because heck, I know that you're having your challenge about our interaction. So instead of putting all that responsibility on you, I'll be responsible for it. And I want to share with you how I'm really feeling inside, rather than asking you to approve me so I can deny how I feel inside with my guilt and shame, if that makes a little bit of sense. So with that said, accepting what's in our heart and accepting what's in someone else's heart when we feel as though they need to forgive us. What was in your heart when you were flaring up in anger? That's what I want to know. What I don't want to know is how easily I can recite the approval-based judgmental words, I forgive you. No, I can go through those motions. I'd rather know what's in your heart as you openly share it, as you are also on your journey of working on true forgiveness. Acceptance and forgiveness of self, for me, are the main ingredients of true forgiveness. And you can also tell probably a third ingredient is communicating this out loud to the ones that we were interacting with in the moment. And with that said, please notice when you are in a place of conditional forgiveness. To me, that's a much more powerful step when we notice we're there, so we don't have to get stuck in it, but we can even take more steps beyond that in our growth and healing. If we can do that and even flirt with true forgiveness, even some of the time, I think it is one of the most heart-healthy, emotionally, physically, and spiritually gifts we can give ourselves, and that we can vibrate and therefore give other people. So with that said, I appreciate you joining me for this journey that is near and dear to my heart on true forgiveness. I'd love to hear in the comments below what your thoughts are on forgiveness. What would you add and subtract from this conversation? Then also one last question. Have you subscribed to my channel yet? If you haven't, I don't know if I can forgive you, but you might subscribe now and you might just earn my forgiveness. So with that said, thank you for joining me, and I'll look forward to you and I talking again next time.